You ready, Rick?
Hold on. Let me shake it out. Let me shake it out. There we go. I'm ready now.
Hello and welcome, animation fans, to another iAnimate podcast. You're listening to episode 23. I'm your host, Larry Vasquez, and joining me once again is Slick Rick here.
How you guys doing? Hey.
Good to hear from you, buddy. It's been a couple podcasts without you, so it's nice to have you back.
Yeah, been busy, but I'm really happy to be back.
Awesome, man. Well, our guest tonight is Simon Unger. He's a lead animator for, forget how to pronounce the name, and we're going to ask him on the podcast, and let's bring him on. All right, Simon. Hey, thank you very much for joining us tonight. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Doing well. Doing very well. First things first, let's jump into your background. How'd you get into animation? Where was your start, man?
I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada. I went to Vancouver Film School in 2000. Been a professional animator for about 14 years now, coming up on 14. I started in TV, working at a little place called Mainframe Entertainment, doing some kids shows, Action Man and Heavy Gear and things like that, and ended up getting an offer from Electronic Arts not too long after I started there, and moved there, did a lot of sports games, moved into more of a cinematic role there, ended up being a lead cinematic animator for a number of titles, number of years. After that, I moved over to Square Enix, a place called IO Interactive in Copenhagen, Denmark, and I was the animation director on Hitman Absolution that came out last year around this time. And I'm now in Los Angeles. I'm the lead animator at Robotoki, which is an indie company. We're working on our first IP called Human Element.
Now, can you tell us a little about that? What's that entail?
Yeah. It's a first-person survival game. It's very much in the what else can I say? It's
tell us everything. Don't hold back. Don't do that to the audience. You gotta bring it. You know, this is iAnimate podcast. We want the best. So, what is it about? Don't be holding back.
You guys will get the scoop. Yeah, it's an open world first person survival game, and it's a massive sandbox of a gameplay. It's meant to have a lot of story driven narrative in the gameplay, not necessarily in the cinematics, but a lot of characters, a lot of interesting emergent gameplay that we're designing around. And it's an amazing team. We've got an incredible group of guys, all super experienced, and it's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be really cool.
Now, is this your first new IP that you've worked on? Because you mentioned you've worked on Hitman, which is kind of a franchise here. But is this your first IP that you've worked on?
That's a good question. Yeah, it is actually. I hadn't even thought of it like that. This is the first time I have had the chance to really shape an IP and be part of its conception. Yeah, I've a good chunk of my career has been spent being put on teams halfway through that were struggling and helping them to ship. So it's a really nice opportunity to be part of the concept and defining characters and defining gameplay and just having a voice in the creation of it.
Yeah, because that was one of the things I was looking at here when it said new IP, and I'm just kind of thinking, what's some of the things you've been enjoying in this process with the new IP?
Oh, just discussing the different character types, their motivations, their wants, their needs, how they move and interact with other characters in the world, how they hold themselves, how they use weapons, even what their weapons look like and how they crafted them, how their sort of their environment and their circumstances define how they dress, how they move, how they hold themselves, all those things. So just getting into the nitty gritty of it's been really freeing, because working on something like Hitman, you have so much history and so much so many assumptions over the character that it was a really challenging thing to stay on model, trying to give too much emotion or not enough emotion, or certain characters just can't behave certain ways. But it's a blank slate. It's really nice.
Now, on your bio, you mentioned that you're a lead animator there, right?
Yes.
So I got two questions here. The first question is, what would a lead animator entail in your job duties? And then also, how does that, as you mentioned, working on a new IP and you're helping shape this, how does that affect you as a lead animator?
Well, it's kind of a unique situation at Robotoki. We're a very flat structure, and while I have the title of lead animator, we're very much about everybody having a voice and a say, and everybody that we've hired essentially is or has been or could be a lead. It's a very, very senior team, and it's meant to be. We don't have a single producer or manager there, so we're all sort of responsible for ourselves and each other, and it's a very different way of working. But in the past, it would be sort of a double duty role, a lot of management and a lot of producing alongside of animating, which you rarely get to do as you become a lead animator these days. But on this project, I'm actually really excited that I've got an amazingly strong animation team with me that we all bring something unique to the table, and we all challenge each other in a really cool way. So I'm excited to actually get my hands dirty this time.
Now, how does, as an animator then who's going to be actually working on it, how does getting to craft the characters, knowing the background, so to speak, as you mentioned, kind of starting a new IP, how does that affect you as an animator versus maybe, say, when you said on Hitman, you're kind of jumping into it maybe midstream?
Gosh, how do I answer that question?
What are some of the things you're thinking about maybe differently since you've kind of had an input on this?
Yeah, well, you try to get your head inside the characters and their circumstances a little bit, and that helps drive, you work through the decisions as if you were one of the characters and thinking about, what they've been through. And I mean, for Human Element, it's, the setting is essentially 40 years after some unnamed apocalypse happened, and 95% of the human population doesn't exist. And so the people that do exist have spent much of their existence just surviving and reconstructing society, and that's really what the game is about, is that it's Human Element. It's the most dangerous things around are the other people in the game and how they interact in the little ecosystems and the different roles that people play. You can be more of a stealth or a hunter or a merchant or all sorts of things that you can become. So you're trying to get your heads into what their immediate priorities are, what their secondary priorities are, and usually that drives sort of all the sub layers of that, like, would they carry a large gun or would they carry a concealed knife, and then if they did that, do they live in a windy part or a very rocky mountainous part, and what do they need? Do they need to climb? So that would dictate how their outfit works, or if they live in a more wooded area, or things like that.
So you having that input up front kind of definitely helps propel you jumping into the animation there.
Yeah,
having to guess
it's a lot of fun. We're making style guides right now, just defining, what are their silhouettes? How do we, what are their color palettes? What are their tendencies? How do they hold themselves when they walk, when they run, when they are trying to sneak?
Now, you'll be teaching at our motion capture workshops. How much of this game here is using motion capture?
A large part of it. Probably half of our characters are bipeds. The other half are all wildlife, and those will be keyframed. I don't think we're going to be doing any animal capture this go around. But yeah, a large part of it will start off its life as motion capture.
Okay. Now, in my notes here, my initial question is, why motion capture? What is the initial or upfront benefit for a company to do motion capture before handing it off to an animator?
Really, motion capture, it's just a productivity tool. We have a lot of assets to get to in a very short amount of time, and we can We can of course keyframe everything if we had the time, but it's just a way for us to create a consistent baseline and to get to the finish line in a much faster manner than keyframing it. It also allows us to prototype and iterate a lot faster than it would to block out and do it all by hand. It really is a productivity thing, especially on a smaller team like us right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have thousands of animations to get to and only a few animators. So,
so it allows you to kind of keep up with a larger company, for example.
It does, but even somebody like Ubisoft, I mean, they all start with motion capture as well. They just working on such a larger scale.
One thing I want to know is, do you also use it for creativity to kind of figure out characters, moments, events, prevising like how the game could look or how a situation might hit or a scripted event might work? Or you just really focusing on just trying to get the certain amount of animations out?
Well, we use it for both, really. It's a great, especially with software like Motion Builder and the Story Tool and things like that. It's great to sort of jigsaw together scraps and pieces of data and motion to assemble new moves and do that quickly. Plus, as much as we plan and as much as we try to prepare for a mocap shoot, when you start working with actors and stunt choreographers and all those, there's sort of new things emerge all the time. So we definitely get a lot of great ideas once we get on the shoot floor as well. You try to limit massive changes, but that kind of input's always super welcome. And I know a lot of the bigger games that have the time and budget for it bring those guys on a lot earlier as part of the concept process. But a lot of indie companies usually don't have the luxury of that and try to figure it out on the fly a little bit.
So what system or systems is this game going to be for?
Currently it is, what can I say? The full version of the game will be high-end PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, console, PC release. That all still hasn't been fully decided yet. We know we have sort of staggered release windows of opportunity, I guess.
Okay, but for next gen.
Yeah, it's definitely a next gen. It is aiming at a AAA sort of release.
Okay. What are you looking forward to most, because these two consoles have just recently released, what are you looking forward to most as an animator with this next generation of consoles?
Oh, I'm looking really forward to, right off the bat, just reducing our compression that we do on the animations, first of all.
What do you mean by that?
Well, with the games trying to get so big and still fit on disk and maintain our 30 to 60 frame rates, 60 frames a second frame rate, we've had to make a lot of compromises when it comes to compression of the animation data, fidelity of the characters, fidelity of the facial performance, things like that. So we're just constantly squeezing. It's astounding what companies like Naughty Dog and Ubisoft can fit on a disc. Last of Us was just ridiculous. I don't know what kind of voodoo they were doing.
Now, when you say compression on animation, when I think of a loss of compression with say video or something along that lines, the quality just looks bad or not as good.
It's the same, very much the same thing. It's that lossy sort of artifacts and interpolation. It's almost the same as if, all the algorithms are different, but it's just like an MP3 thing where it finds the peaks and valleys and just maintains those, but eliminates any of the in-between. Okay. So you get a lot of robotic, choppy movement and things like that, but a lot of the subtlety is lost.
Okay. Yeah, that's on the animation itself, and also it can happen that, because the bone counts can drop, load and drop during gameplay. So if you're playing a game and it's decided that we don't need any face bones on the character while you're playing, those face bones disappear, and you just go into a very one expression face, which is often angry until it's needed. So background characters might have I don't know,
Definitely.
16 bones. The closer they get, they might get 32, 64, and all of a sudden they might go up to 120, 100,
Yeah.
160 bones once they're really close. But it changes in the animation. You can see sometimes their legs are floating, they go through the ground, their hands are not IK'd or anything like that. So that's how
the
a
thing
compression.
we're looking into right now is all the tricks that film have been using for years, like things like blend shapes and point caching and all that, and we can now start to do that at runtime with these new consoles and the high-end PCs, which it's nice that PC is sort of making a comeback in that regard, because it raises the ceiling a little bit on what we can do. Plus, I think one thing I'm really excited about is just how much more powerful our AI systems will be, how many more characters we can get on screen. I mean, if you've seen, we've been playing Dead Rising a lot at work on the Xbox One, and just the amount of zombies on screen is just insane, what they're rendering right now, and that just wasn't possible before. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's like what he's saying about future console, what's exciting, the ceiling has been risen. We're going to have the animation budget. Like back then, it was like if you had 15 megs, you're like, okay, cool, I have 15 megs. And it might drop down to 10 megs of memory, for all your characters on screen. But now with the new systems, you can almost say it's almost obsolete, the amount of memory.
You know what? I guarantee we'll find a way to fill this up within the first 6 months of development. I guarantee it. I've been through a few console releases now, and we always find a way to fill it up.
But that's a good thing, though, because like you're saying, that ceiling's been lifted, so you find a way to fill that up with more information, whether it be more animation, or better animation, I guess, or like you said, more characters.
Oh, we've got the physical based shaders, the global illumination, all the dynamic lighting that we can do now. Cloth sims, it's going to get so close to film on this generation, I think, and then whatever comes after will be, I think that'll be the big leap, is the next one. I don't see it happening on this generation, but
pretty close.
That next one for sure.
You know what? To me, why I'm excited about this generation is exactly that. But also, I'm going to say, because we brought Simon because he's an expert in motion capture, but now we have the memory to put in character behaviors, a whole bunch of in-depth systems. It's not just like a guy just walking, everyone uses the same walk. Everyone can have a different walk. Everyone can have an attitude in their walk, whether it's angry, happy, sad, sick, hurt, different speeds. You can have a full bank of animation. So one person who does a cover, you can have, instead of having one cover system, you can have a cover system that's mimicked on different characters, but they all do cover a different way. So even though we take cover, we're taking cover all differently, and that only with motion capture we're able to build so many animations, so many systems at a fast rate. And I think it was it was something we wanted so bad on Hitman. We designed it in. We had we even captured most of the animations for it. Like we wanted to say a civilian versus a guard versus a goon, and all these different categories. And when they had their weapon drawn or they were hunting for you or anything, you could see them. Just their silhouette was different. Just how they moved, their pacing, all those things, the behavior, the choices they make. Are they going to flank, or are they going to form in a group and then come after you in a group? Or are they going to go on their own? Just that more believable, more organic. That organic and believable feeling. Talking Colin Graham, who's also our motion capture instructor.
Yeah, he's dealing with that right now.
Yeah, we call it the living city at Ubisoft, right? Yeah. How do you make a city feel real? Like, you can't just keyframe every little. I mean, you could, but you would need a massive team, a massive amount of time. And even for the animators, like all those little nuances, those small motions, those small acting pieces, it is a challenge, and it takes time. And you rather spend more time on one of those rewarding moments, or those action sequence, or that the acting piece of character talking about an event. This is where I think motion capture is a huge benefit for us directors. when we're creating a game and trying to make that game feel absolutely real and believable and sincere. So
well, the scale of the worlds we have to create now is just constantly getting bigger and bigger. I mean, you take something like Skyrim, it's just so massive, and there's so many people you have to fill it with, and the one we're working on, a human element, is even bigger, and it's just, you're creating universes now with the same amount of people and the same amount of programmers and the same time or less now. So
that motion capture then kind of becomes
it's a necessity.
Assistant animators, though, so to speak. They kind of help block things in where you can now be handed that off to run with it.
It is. And it shortens the time. Usually, a lot of times, design the time span between the concept and seeing it in game is now getting a lot shorter as well. And if they wanted to create a combat feature or change a storyline and shoot a bunch of new cinematics, it's you can be on the floor shooting it, capture it, and have it back in your hands the next day. Whereas that 20 seconds of animation would take months to keyframe and to get to that level, at least the base level where it's delivered at. It's never. I'm a firm believer that mocap is rarely good enough right out of the can. It's realistic capture, but it oftentimes doesn't work believably when you put it on an animated character on a tiny little screen in a game like that. So your animation sensibilities and principles still very much apply when working with mocap.
You can't. I mean, regardless where you look at it, as you look at it, it's like from an animator's point of view, it's a fantastic tool. It helps you get closer to what you need to deliver in terms of the idea, the shot, the performance. And as you look at a high level when you're directing, it helps you to steer your game, your project when needed. So if you need like Simon said, if you need something new or a new system, you can reshoot it. If you have a major change in your script and your cinematic, you can get a fast turnaround, and that plays huge. And to me, what I find is super beneficial is that someone I can rely on that can help take care of that process, someone that can, like, if the animator cannot doesn't know how to use it, then he's not going to see the benefits of how motion capture is going to be great. I mean, how it's a great tool.
Absolutely.
It's a fantastic tool.
It is, and it's something that everybody's sort of moving towards. It's becoming more and more prevalent, and you can take the idea. I mean, we all want to make stuff for our demo reel. We all want to keyframe things, but at the end of the day, we are making these gigantic products, and you can embrace it and harness the sort of the benefits and the potential of what mocap gives you, or you can kind of begrudge it and be a victim to it. But I think it's an amazing tool. It's really great. It's some of my favorite times in this industry have been working on mocap shoots and working with the actors, and it's been a really creative experience. So
it seems like to me, maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like motion capture is most used for very realistic types of games. I rarely see it used for much different than that. It seems like you mentioned in EA with their sports titles and things of that nature, they're trying to hit a very ultra realistic style.
I think that's usually a result of people seeing sort of the shortest distance between 2 points, really. When like mocap is just taken literally, you put a human in there and you get human animation. But I think we're seeing now people using it just again as just a productivity tool. EA is an example for NBA Jam. It was a very squash and stretch, very cartoony animation set. All of that started life as mocap. They had a very small animation team, and they had to make an entire game from scratch, and that was all straight mocap that they just brought in. They could retime, exaggerate the arcs, exaggerate the poses and all that stuff, and get to a very keyframey a really nice, exaggerated style, and in half the time, a third the time. So I think we're seeing the tools get a lot more approachable, and animators getting a lot more comfortable with the data and using it and harnessing it instead of sort of just delivering it as a product. I think really looking at it like it's just a starting point. It's just a base and a lump of clay to sculpt however you want.
When you look at Mocap, it's so young. It's super young.
It is.
I mean, you can. It's probably as started. I guess in 2003. That was starting to be really mainstream. If I correct me if I'm wrong, but
yeah.
But what I think is something important is that how it's being used. People who are new to it probably just take it, plug it, and put it in. But people who have been doing it for a long time know that you can take it and push it and make it stylized. You can use that as a base point. Even example, at the DreamWorks when the president was there, they did a little piece on Mocap and showing how directors use it as their previs. At DreamWorks, you can use it as previs. If you even think even more high level, like when we do live, like when we use our reference, we shoot ourselves, we record ourselves, and we piece things together. How many animators or how many guys do you know have used motion capture like that? If the people start using things like that, I mean, animators can take a shot even further, more in depth, and animators are no longer becoming animators. You can consider animators as actors, and that's something I think gives a lot of tools and benefits to us as artists. So the motion capture is just a tool. We are so artists. You need to be still creative and an animator in using it, and there's so much yet that we have done with it, and it's not a tool of the future. I think it's a tool of today. I mean, look at Weta uses it a lot. I mean, all these films use it, not just games, but films use it. Previs teams use it. Cinematic House use it. Motion capture is here. A lot of people don't like. I want to focus on keyframe. You're still going to keyframe. I don't want just a mocap technician. I want an artist that knows how to use the motion capture tools because it's a tool. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, it's been. Yeah, you mentioned 2003. I wonder. I've been using it since 2000. Really, I mean, my first job right out of the gate, we were using it. I've been using it for a long, long time. But I think, at the end of the day, the animator is still responsible for the final performance, regardless of its origin or regardless of the process that they use to get there. You're really, at the end of the day, you're saying, yes, I'm happy with this animation, this movement. And all we're trying to do is create the most believable motion we can, most believable performances, and whatever tool gets us there the quickest. I mean, optical motion capture is probably, it's in its in its twilight. We don't know. It might be things like the Moven suit and just camera-based mocap. I know facial stuff is heading that way now, using all sorts of things like electrodes to track eye movement and not using markers on the face anymore. A lot of really cool strides in just the last couple of years, especially in facial capture, have been big. But it's just a starting place. It's just a tool.
Well, you spoke, I think it was April at GDC of this year?
Yeah.
Okay. And your topic was performance capture in games. Now, you called it performance capture. Can you explain maybe how you see that different than just, say, motion capture?
It's kind of a silly term. I think it was, we had a debate over what defines it as performance capture and what's motion capture. We're capturing motion all the time. Mm-hmm. I think the only thing that is now making performance capture a buzzword is that we're tending to record audio at the same time now, which I find gives a much more authentic performance if you can capture the body, the face, and the voice all in the same take. You get the interaction on set, the subtleties on set that you just are really hard to capture if you remove the head, capture that separately, and then do a VO session afterwards. And you've got these 3 different places, and you're trying to assemble a performance out of, sometimes they could be weeks, months apart, and it's really hard to get a real intense, powerful scene, powerful interaction between 2 characters when you do it that way. So it's cool that we're getting, nicer sets, more soundproof sets, a lot more awareness about performance capture. We can get an audio team on set and capturing all sorts of angles. It's really cool where it's headed right now.
Okay. Yeah. To me, the performance. It's when we say performance capture, we're capturing the performance as like if we would shoot a movie.
Okay.
Yes. That means we have the actor potentially could be the same character in the game, like Vaz in Ubisoft, the Far Cry. It's the same actor. So we're not just capturing, the action, the moment. We're capturing the whole piece. Meaning we're capturing the camera at the same time, so we're capturing the audio at the same time, and we're even selecting actors, and not just selecting voice actors. We're selecting both at the same time when it's like a more realistic game. So I find we're selecting a performance versus just doing motion capture. Before, motion capture was just crowds, running and fighting. But now we're doing performance capture because we're trying to capture that essence of the moment. That is
in the early days we were essentially just hiring puppeteers, and now it's we're doing proper casting, and we're doing auditions and rehearsals, and it's amazing. It's like I said, it's some of my favorite times have been on set working with the actors and just everybody surrounding it. A friend of mine, a director, a really great director, said it best when he sort of gets the actors on set, and he explains it as it's the most natural performance you'll ever give in the most unnatural environment. And it's so true that you're not thinking about hitting a mark or hitting a camera or anything like that. I mean, typically we'll board it, and you'll try to, if you're doing a cinematic, you'll try to hit certain things for composition. But it's freeing. It's back to what it's very much like theater acting, where it's back to playing, and it's back to just solid performance. It's really fun.
Okay. Because I can also see part of a benefit, like you mentioned, you're casting for certain types of performance, whether it be martial arts, or I'm just now thinking of something like an MMA game, where maybe if that's not your background, you would not know how to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where now you're able to pull in that.
Yeah, well, you can bring in experts, but you can also there's just such a wealth of reference out there. Really, I don't treat shooting a mocap shot any different than I would keyframing a shot. You still gather reference, you still do your research, you still figure out what your goal is for the shot. You just have that added benefit of playing off of a live human when you're there and collaborating on the move, instead of putting your headphones on, hoping it turns out as best as it can.
What part of the process of animation do you enjoy the most?
I like polish myself. I begrudgingly do blocking, even though blocking is definitely the most satisfying. But I even when I did traditional art, I loved coloring. I hated doing the initial drawings. So I just love the it's almost meditative aspect of doing polish.
Okay, now we talked a little bit about your current project and starting a new IP. How was it for working on something like Hitman? You mentioned, where it was, like I said, it was a franchise. How was that different for you? What was some of the stuff you learned during that process that maybe now you're taking to this project here?
It was definitely the scale of the characters and the scope of the world that we were creating. I learned so much about acting, voiceover, and working with actors on that. I had an amazing team. We flew to LA here to shoot all the cinematics, and we did it at a studio called Giant down in Culver City, where they did Avatar and Tintin, and such an amazing crew of guys there, and we had I used the word amazing too much, I think. Fantastic. We had a fantastic crew. The actors we had were just so cool to work with. We had such a cool cast, and we tried to cast authentically for the characters instead of what I would call stunt casting, which a lot of games do, which they sort of bring in a celebrity just for marketing purposes, but they don't necessarily work well for the characters. We tried to be really authentic to the characters, and that was a fun process of just going through all the audition tapes and the crew we finally had. They were amazing. It was so fun. So yeah, just taking a lot of that knowledge of how to organize something on that scale, how to work with all the different character types, the VO, everything. It all directly applies to this.
Now, you were an animation director on that one?
Yes.
Is that why you had so much of the interaction with the shoots and stuff?
I did, but really, I mean, I don't think there was a single animator on that team that I didn't put in a suit at some point. We had our own mocap space at IO as well, and I put everybody from a programmer to an animator to everybody I could find in a suit. I think it's important. Even when we went to LA, I brought a couple of the guys with me as much as I could. I think it's important for animators to be comfortable with that pipeline, with being on set, planning a shoot, all that stuff. It's important to be able to own a chunk of the game, because that's really what leads are looking for. They're looking for people who can take a lot of ownership and a lot of initiative in a feature or an area of the game or an entire character. Okay. It makes my job so much easier.
Not just a part of the process, but something they can kind of lay their hands on the whole.
Absolutely. I mean, I had one guy who he was a gigantic MMA fan, loved fighting, and he was just like, I want combat, and he just took it. He didn't really give us a choice. He just took it. But,
that's the best commitment right there.
He knocked it out of the park. He just went to his room and just owned it, and we ended up giving him an outsourcing team to manage and all sorts of assets, and yeah, it was great. It was really cool. So I love stuff like that, and any game team does. Every game team loves people that will step up and stick their neck out and take a chance and own something. So
that was just one of the animators there who did that?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
By that
every one of the animators on Hitman did something just like that. They staked a claim on the game and made it their own. So
that's cool.
You know what's cool? Two things I want to say. What's really cool about what I find cool about games is that you get a lot of opportunity to take ownership.
Yeah.
You if you really you say I really want to do this, and you're showing that you want to do it, and you're going to commit, and you're going to not just put great effort, but you're going to produce results. There's no reason why a director won't let you continue on. He'd be like, you're doing great work. You get to do it, and you can put your own take on it, your own spin, as long as the director says, it's within the realm of what we want for the game, the game, the vision of the game. It's cool, but it's great that you can do that in games. You can just go on and say, you know what, I'm going to do combat, and be like, if it's going to work, you can do that in games. There's no
everybody's more than happy to delegate and give. Keith Lango said something great on Twitter. I think it was yesterday, but it was so true. Is that everybody loves working with people that make their jobs easier, and if you can make the next guy down the line's job a bit easier, another guy's job better, that's always welcome.
So the second thing, and I'm going to take on from making your job easier, is to me, that's why I'm like, I had a animator who just emailed me. I just wrote back before the podcast, and he asked me what can he do to grow as an animator or get in his first job. And I said, be valuable. Have those things that it's going to make my job easier. And to me, it was like, well, you should, if you want to really get into games, if you can learn, motion capture or learn rigging or learn something other than just animation. You're going to make my job easier and make me more interested in you as an animator. Now, the second thing I wanted just to mention really quickly, because a lot of people don't know this. In between Canada and United States, the term animation director and lead, there's this kind of gap.
Between every studio.
Yeah, every studio. So if you're a lead animator, it's equal to an animation director. You just don't get the title director because they just don't want to.
Even on Hitman Absolution, I think on paper I was a lead animator for the studio, but they were nice enough to give me animation director in the opening credits of the game, so I took it. But yeah, I've
funny.
Talked with it's like Ubisoft gives out that title to a lot of.
But we have
animators.
we have a huge team. We have a very, very huge team, so we need to have that title.
Absolutely, yeah.
As a smaller teams, like when I was at Liquid, there was no animation director, it was just animation lead. Yeah. But your responsibility is to direct your animation department.
It is. The responsibility is kind of similar. It really, like you said, it comes down to scope. Like on Hitman, I think at one point in-house, for most of the project, we had about 21, 22 animators in-house. Another 10 or so in an Indian studio, some guys, a team in Sweden, and a guy in Canada. That was a lot of people, so I had a gameplay lead, a cinematics lead, and an AI lead, and things like that. And so I think at that point you do become a director because there are leads working under you, and you're sort of trying to maintain continuity over the game and a sense of direction versus being a bit more on the ground and fighting the day-to-day battles, because usually the leads will take that up a little bit more. So yeah, I guess that title tends to come a bit more from the scope of the team, but the duties are very much the same. But yeah, like I said, I'm glad to hand some of that off and be a little bit more on the ground.
Oh yeah, if you guys, if everyone can do more than if you're an amazing animator and you're really great with other tools, rigging, motion capture. To me, I love that, because those are the guys I want on my core team, and they stay throughout the whole project. And usually I never want to let them go to another project.
Those guys are the problem solvers, and every team needs a problem solver.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you looking forward to most teaching here at with the workshop?
Oh, I love seeing people get better. I love talking animation. So any chance I can get to do it, I'm happy to do it. And I've been wanting to teach for so long. I think it would be a really fun experience just to work with people and show them this part of the animation world. And I'm really hoping to change the perception of motion capture. I think it's got a bad rap amongst animators for a long time now. A lot of people thinking it's replacing us and making us obsolete. And I think it's just the opposite. I think it's just empowering us to do more and to be more involved in a lot of the decision making. And it's great. It's and plus it's a ton of fun.
Very cool. Now, you've been teaching the workshop 1 or 2?
Rick can answer that too.
Okay. Yeah.
I see the fingers up. Yeah.
You never know what might happen. I always joke about, you see this smile, but yeah, with Simon, with workshop 2, it will be Simon, Colin, and Brent. So I mean, you got three powerhouse guys, who are hugely respected in the industry. Who really know, who really understands, not just, the animation portion, but they also understand the demand of motion capture, what we need, what is expected, how to. I mean, these guys are leading the industry. I mean,
God, I'm super humbled to be a part of it. It's an all-star crew. I'm kind of the underdog here, so it's.
He says the underdog.
Very flattered to be part of this.
He says that, but people forget that Simon goes to GDC all the time to talk about motion capture, and we are the one who goes there and start taking notes. And also, you do we haven't mentioned, but alt dev group. I mean, Simon does a lot of. Simon and Mike, they give a lot to the community, and this is the type of guys we love to have at iAnimate that are really committed and. It's not just pure talent, but it's also commitment, and they love what they do, and they're really into it.
Oh, it's been so much fun just being a part of the animation community. I kind of lived under a rock for 9 years while I was at EA, and I just kind of came out, joined Twitter, and started meeting guys from all these different studios, and got invited to speak at GDC last year. Met guys from Naughty Dog and Epic and just everywhere. It's so cool. There's such a supportive, amazing community in games right now that we're able to do stuff like this. Get guys from Ubisoft, EA, everywhere. It's so cool.
Well, we do really appreciate you taking some time out here for us and joining us in the podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
awesome.
Thanks, guys. This was awesome.
Very cool. All right, with that, we're out.